Keep your eyes on the black SUV. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than a young woman heading out early in the morning. But this vehicle belongs to 24-year-old Amy Lord, a Massachusetts native who had built a promising life for herself in Boston. The SUV pulls up to a bank and comes to a slow stop beside the ATM. Everything seems perfectly ordinary, until the window begins to roll down. That's when the truth becomes visible. Amy isn't behind the wheel. A man is driving her car. He leans away from the camera, doing everything he can to conceal his face. And Amy, who should be on her way to the gym at this hour, looks injured. Her left eye is swollen, the kind of swelling that comes from being hit. She barely moves, barely breathes. The entire ATM transaction lasts only seconds before she leans back quickly, almost flinching. She turns, shows the man the cash as if awaiting approval, and then the SUV backs out of frame. Minutes later, they arrive at another ATM, the Metro Credit Union. Under the harsh CCTV lights, Amy looks even more distressed. Her eyes dart toward the camera as if silently begging for help. But again, the stop is brief, mechanical, and the SUV pulls away. Between 6 and 7 a.m., Amy is forced to withdraw money from 5 different ATMs scattered across South Boston. Each stop is captured on grainy surveillance cameras, each transaction revealing just a fraction more of the terror she's enduring. At 8 a.m., Amy's SUV is found engulfed in flames in a quiet parking lot. By 11 a.m., when her manager realizes she never showed up for work, the missing person report is filed. With nothing but the scattered CCTV footage to rely on, detectives launch an urgent search for Amy. Their mission is simple but time-sensitive: find her kidnapper before he strikes again. But before investigators can even piece together where to start, another horrific discovery is made. A young woman is found bleeding heavily, clinging to life. I said, "Oh my God, this is Kayleigh." Kayleigh's mother, Kim, remembers the moment everything inside her sank. "I knew something terrible had happened. I wanted to talk to her, but they told me no, she was already in the emergency room." Kayleigh, still alive but brutally attacked, might be the only person capable of identifying the South Boston slasher and leading detectives to Amy. But she has to survive first, something that was far from guaranteed. "This person tried to kill my daughter," Kim recalls. "I was terrified he would show up at the hospital to finish what he started." Only 3 months earlier, Kayleigh had moved to Boston from her small Maine town. Her best friend had offered her a place to stay for the summer, and Kim helped her settle into her new life. "I remember moving her in around the end of May," Kim says. "I told her, let's take a ride on the subway, let's get on the T. I wanted to show her which line took her to her job in Cambridge, how to get home, how to navigate the city. I just wanted her to feel confident." Still, the thought of her daughter living alone in a big city gnawed at Kim. "I wasn't overly excited about her being in Boston for the summer. I mean, it's a big city. Anything can happen." But Kayleigh had that fiery spirit. She didn't let people push her around. I believed she'd be careful. By July, Kayleigh had settled into a rhythm, balancing an internship, a restaurant job, and training for field hockey. Boston had become familiar, even comfortable. But on July 23rd, the city she had grown to trust became the setting for her worst nightmare. At 4:23 in the morning, Kayleigh was asleep in her Gate Street apartment. Less than a mile away, exactly 1 minute later, a woman walking to work was suddenly ambushed by a stranger. "My name is Paul McLaughlin," says the sergeant detective with the Boston Police Department. "I was in the courthouse with my squad waiting on a jury verdict for another homicide case when I got word about an incident at about 4:24 a.m.
The victim, a woman named Alexandra Cruz, had been attacked by a man. The attack shook everyone. The Alexandra incident, that's the kind of thing people fear late at night. But this happened just before sunrise. It was every person's worst nightmare. 21-year-old Alexandra Cruz, a hardworking single mother, had simply been on her way to her morning shift, never expecting that danger was waiting on a quiet street.
Before heading out for work, Alexandra drops her son off with the babysitter. It's still pitch black outside, the kind of early morning quiet where the city feels half asleep. She walks along Old Colony Avenue, only minutes from the Dunkin' Donuts where she works the morning shift. Behind her, footsteps. A man. She notices him, but doesn't feel alarmed. Not yet. Then everything happens at once. A hand clamps around her from behind. An arm wraps around her throat. The man drags her off the sidewalk and into a nearby parking lot, choking her so fiercely she can barely make a sound. Alexandra fights, desperate to break free, but he starts punching her, hard, fast, relentless. The world blurs, then fades. When she finally opens her eyes, she's lying on the cold ground. Her attacker is crouched a few feet away, calmly rummaging through the scattered contents of her purse. By the time she manages to stand, he's already vanished into the early morning darkness. I pulled the incident report, Detective Paul McLaughlin recalls. Alexander described the attacker as a Hispanic male, and she mentioned something very specific. He had a mole on his lip. That single detail stands out. Using the department's booking system, McLaughlin runs a search. 10 names come up. Among them, one particular face grabs his attention, a man living in South Boston. McLaughlin prints the photo, folds it, and slips it into his pocket. A potential lead, but nothing more. Yet. While McLaughlin and Detective Flynn from the South Boston Police Station begin piecing together the attack on Alexandra, another call comes in, one that makes the morning feel suddenly heavier. That same day, McLaughlin says, my superintendent calls me and says, just a heads up, we've got a missing person in South Boston. A young woman named Amy Lord. The name stops him cold. The location stops him colder. Amy lived just blocks from the spot where Alexandra had been attacked only hours earlier. Her coworkers had reported her missing after she failed to show up, something Amy was known never to do. Amy was always on time, her coworker explains. If she was late, that was the first sign something was wrong. Her sister Carly echoes the same fear. Being late? My sister? She'd never. Amy knew exactly what she wanted in life. She had big dreams, and she was working so hard to reach them. Carly and her parents make the drive from Wilbraham to Boston, hearts racing with dread. They meet detectives at Amy's apartment, hoping for anything, clues, explanations, a reason not to panic. But there are no signs of forced entry, no struggle, nothing out of place, except for 2 missing items, Amy's black Jeep and her wallet. McLaughlin decides to trace her final bank transactions, hoping the digital trail will point them toward where she went, or where she was taken. The bank records showed that starting at 6:03 a.m., Amy made or attempted withdrawals at 5 banks, 5 stops, one after another. The detective isn't fully convinced yet that the 2 incidents, Alexander's attack and Amy's disappearance, are connected, but the timing, the proximity, and the violence, the feeling in his gut is impossible to ignore. While waiting for the banks to send over the surveillance footage, McLaughlin meets with Amy's family to explain the situation as gently as he can. Obviously, a missing person is concerning, but when you see multiple ATM withdrawals at different locations, you start to fear the worst. The air in the room turns heavy. Things were looking more and more bleak, McLaughlin admits. Eventually, the capes begin arriving.
The first is from Bank of America. Time-stamped 6:28 a.m., it shows Amy at the ATM. She appears tense, but nothing in the footage clearly explains where she went next or who might be with her. Before detectives finish reviewing it, another tape arrives. This one is from Citizens Bank. This one stops them in their tracks. At 6:43 a.m., Amy's black Jeep pulls up. But it isn't Amy who steps out of the driver's seat. Amy gets out from the passenger side, walking toward the bank entrance. The Jeep backs away. Someone else is driving it. Someone out of frame. Someone controlling every move she makes. Even worse, the swelling on the left side of Amy's face is now unmistakably visible. More tapes arrive. McLaughlin combs through every frame, every shadow, every flicker of movement. The Sovereign Bank footage, time-stamped 6:36 a.m., isn't clear enough to reveal the driver, but it does show Amy. The condition she's in, the clothes she's wearing, the fear visible in the way she moves. And piece by piece, the horrifying truth begins to take shape.
In the ATM footage, detectives notice it right away. The beginnings of redness and swelling around Amy's face. Her eyes, her cheek, even the bridge of her nose look painfully inflamed. This wasn't exhaustion or an accident. These were the unmistakable signs of violence. To investigators, the truth is obvious. Amy didn't go to those banks by choice. This was a kidnapping. The last two surveillance tapes arrive, and McLaughlin knows this may be his final chance to see who's behind the wheel of Amy's Jeep. What they capture changes everything. The Metro Credit Union footage, time-stamped at 6:14 a.m., shows Amy's Jeep pulling into the parking lot and stopping at the ATM. Through the glass window, the driver is visible for a moment until he notices the camera. Instantly, he jerks back, disappearing from view. When he reappears, his face is covered. For just a fraction of a second, he removes his cap, revealing a closely shaved head. It's the only solid detail they get. He never got out of the car, McLaughlin explains. While Amy is leaning over him to use the ATM, he leans back. We never got that clear, full-on shot of his face we needed to say, that's him. Meanwhile, Detective Flynn collects another crucial piece of evidence: surveillance from a building across the street from Amy's Dorchester Street apartment. The video only shows half of the doorway, Flynn says. We see what we believe is Amy coming out, but just before that, a man walks past the door. We can't see much, just that he's male. He walks by, looks toward the glass entrance, and he must have seen Amy on the stairs. He hesitates, turns as if to walk away, and that's when the door opens. Amy steps halfway out. He charges her. A sudden, violent rush. He forces her back inside. The footage is low quality, grainy, and frustratingly unclear, but its emotional impact is devastating. The only thing I could think about was the fear she must have felt, Flynn says quietly. Maybe he said something to her inside that hallway, something about knowing where she lived, knowing her roommates, knowing her car, something that made her realize she might not survive if she fought back. The fear is palpable even in the blurry frames. And then, before the detectives can go any further, another blow. A vehicle burned beyond recognition earlier that morning has been identified. It's Amy Lord's missing Jeep. When I heard her Jeep had been found fully engulfed in flames, McLaughlin recalls, I thought, we don't know for sure yet, but this is going in a bad direction. That direction becomes horrifyingly clear. Late in the afternoon, the call comes in. A body has been found in a wooded area of Hyde Park. Detectives need to respond immediately. McLaughlin races to the scene, hoping, against every instinct, that it's not who he fears it is. But when he arrives and sees the young woman lying motionless on the ground, the truth hits him harder than he imagined. It's Amy. She was beaten beyond recognition, stabbed over a dozen times. She was completely stripped, except for an angel wing necklace she was wearing. Detective Flynn is with the Lord family when the news reaches them. The moment is seared into his memory.
He was at Amy's apartment. My boss called and asked, "Are you close to the parents?" When he told me to step away, I knew. Then came the words no family should ever hear. We found her. Flynn has seen a lot in his career, but this moment shakes him. I had to get out of there. I wanted to get the hell away. It was awful, just awful. For McLaughlin, standing over Amy's body triggers a deeply personal reaction. You feel for every victim, he says, and his voice is low. But this was senseless. My daughter was born the same year as Amy, graduated around the same time. All I could think about was what her parents were about to go through. The emotional weight is crushing, but the detective can't slow down. A violent predator is out there, one bold enough to abduct, assault, and murder in daylight. McLaughlin knows what he must do next. Find any footage between Alexandra's attack and Amy's abduction. Track the killer's movement, his path, his timing, his pattern. It was clear someone was looping through those streets, he explains. Given the proximity and timing, I believed we were looking at the same person. And if that was true, there was a killer walking around South Boston. By nightfall, news of Amy Lord's murder spreads across the city. Warnings go out on every station. Women are told to stay inside, walk in pairs, avoid the streets alone. Because somewhere in South Boston, the man who attacked Alexandra, the man who kidnapped Amy, the man who murdered her, is still out there.
However, while the entire neighborhood is slipping into panic, Kayleigh Ballantyne is still at work in Cambridge, finishing a late shift. She has no idea what has been unfolding around South Boston all day. No idea that police are racing between crime scenes, that 2 women have already been attacked, and that a predator is roaming freely through the same streets she will soon be walking. By the time she clocks out, it's nearly midnight. Exhausted, Kayleigh boards the T, riding toward Broadway Station like she has dozens of times before. She texts her mother a quick goodnight, steps off the train, and begins the short walk home. It's familiar, comforting even. Just a few quiet blocks stand between her and her apartment. But at 11:45 p.m., when she is only 1 block away from safety, everything changes. What happens next is not immediately clear. There are no witnesses, no screams reported, no cameras catching the exact moment of the attack. But what is known is chilling. Kayleigh does make it to her building's entrance. She gets that far. Yet somewhere between the lobby door and her apartment hallway, she is brutally ambushed. When her roommate opens the door, the scene is horrifying. Blood splattered across the floor, a trail leading down the hallway. And there, collapsed and barely clinging to life, is Kayleigh. Stab wounds everywhere. Her breathing shallow, her skin cold. She can barely speak. At that very moment, Detective McLaughlin and the 2 South Boston detectives are still at Amy Lord's apartment, carefully processing evidence in the hallway. They're already overwhelmed by the possibility of a serial predator. Then another call comes over the radio. Woman stabbed in Gate Street. Gate Street is only 500 yards away. The detectives look at each other in disbelief, almost frozen for a second. Another attack, another young woman, same area, same pattern. Oh no, not again. The nightmare they feared has arrived. Across state lines in rural Maine, Kayleigh's mother, Kim, wakes to her phone ringing. The 617 number flashes on the screen. Her stomach sinks instantly. She answers, already shaking. A man identifies himself as Detective Bobby Flynn from the Boston Police Department. His words hit her like a blow. "Your daughter's been stabbed." Kim screams. She becomes hysterical, begging to speak to her daughter, begging for any reassurance. But Flynn tells her that Kayleigh is in the emergency room fighting for her life and can't talk. Then reality sets in. A violent attacker is out there. They haven't caught him, and Kim's daughter is now a witness, perhaps the only survivor who could identify him. She panics. What if he comes after her again? What if he goes to the hospital? What if he knows she lived? Kim jumps into her car and begins the 2-hour drive to Boston. Every mile feels like forever.
Her mind won't stop replaying the same terrifying question. Is my daughter going to survive until I get there? Back in South Boston, Detective Flynn is on Telegraph Street, retracing the attacker's escape route. Blood droplets mark the path he took while fleeing. He already knows they're dealing with someone unhinged, unpredictable, and extremely dangerous. A young man in his 20s, tattoos, tank top, hat. He and McLaughlin have been gathering CCTV footage for nearly 20 straight hours, piecing together the suspect's movements frame by frame. Flynn is exhausted, but he feels a shift, a sense that they're getting closer, that the pieces are finally lining up. He has no idea the truth is about to hit him harder than anything in his career. Suddenly, the dispatcher radios him with urgency. "The suspect from your incident just walked into Tufts Medical Center." Flynn freezes. Tufts is the same hospital where Kayleigh is fighting for her life. He repeats the message, stunned. "So you're telling me the suspect is in the same emergency room as the victim?" Pure adrenaline kicks in. He yells at his partner, "Stevie, we gotta go!" Stevie protests, reminding him they still have a crime scene to process. But Flynn isn't listening. This is the break they've been desperate for. "Stevie, we gotta go!" Lights on, sirens screaming, they tear across the city as fast as they can. When they arrive at Tufts, they sprint through the ambulance entrance. Flynn heads straight for Kayleigh's room, and the moment he steps inside, she reaches out with a desperate clawing grip, grabbing his shirt with shocking strength. Her voice is a frantic rasp. "He's here! They told me he walked in! Is he here?" She is trembling, eyes wide in terror. She believes the man who tried to kill her is coming back to finish the job. Before Flynn can respond, an EMT rushes in. He had earlier heard Kayleigh describe her attacker, and now he has just seen a man matching back exact description walking casually down the hospital hallway. Security alerts echo. The hospital goes into lockdown. Stevie gives Flynn a look. "Over here." Flynn turns, and there he is. The suspect. The predator they've been chasing for 20 hours, standing inside the same hospital as his surviving victim. Flynn can hardly process it. The bad guy showing up at Tufts? How do you even figure that? Meanwhile, Detective McLaughlin is still back on the streets of South Boston, unaware of the unfolding chaos at the hospital. He is collecting the last crucial pieces of security footage that will finally confirm exactly who this young man is, how he moved, and what he did. And when all the video is pieced together, the true horror of the killer's path will finally become clear.
As Detective McLaughlin leaves Kayleigh's apartment building, still processing the chaos of the last few hours, he absent-mindedly pats his pocket. Inside is the photo he originally pulled when investigating the attack on Alexandra Cruz, the Hispanic male with the mole on his lip. A possible suspect. 1 face out of 10. A slim lead, but a lead nonetheless. He hasn't thought about that picture in hours, not since the first stabbing call, not since the second. But suddenly, it's right back at the center of everything. Because only a short time later, McLaughlin's phone rings. A detective stationed at Tufts Medical Center speaks quickly, breathless. "You know that picture you gave me? That guy you told me about? He's down here. He's at the hospital." McLaughlin freezes. The connection they've been circling, first Alexandra, then Amy, then Kayleigh, has just snapped together in the most unexpected place. The connection's drawing closer and tighter, he thinks. It's no longer a theory, no longer a coincidence. All 3 attacks now orbit a single man. At the hospital, Detective Flynn inspects their suspect, 28-year-old Edwin Alemany. He immediately notices the deep, ragged gash across Edwin's hand. It's bad enough that he required medical attention, which is exactly what brought him to Tufts. Investigators know what this means. While stabbing Kayleigh, she must have fought him with everything she had. She clawed, she grabbed, she resisted. At some point, the knife slid or twisted, slicing into his own hand. There's now blood evidence tying him to her. But one question looms larger than all the others. If he attacked Kayleigh,
Did he also murder Amy Lord? They can't say for certain, not yet. But every passing moment points stronger in his direction. For now, Flynn keeps himself between Edwin and the emergency room doors. Under no circumstances is he letting this man anywhere near Kayleigh. We didn't want to get into a huge fight with him inside the emergency room, Flynn recalls. With 4 or 5 officers surrounding him, they quietly move in and place him under arrest. The tension is thick. One wrong move could result in chaos in the middle of a hospital. Once secured in a separate room, the interrogation begins. Flynn sits across from Edwin, watching his every shift, every twitch. Edwin spins a sloppy story about a street fight causing his injuries. He denies knowing Kayleigh. He denies any involvement. He denies remembering anything at all. The interview was basically a long series of denials, Flynn says. Nothing but lies stacked on lies. He refuses to budge, but the evidence outside that room is piling up too fast to ignore. Meanwhile, Kim finally reaches Boston, exhausted, terrified, and numb. It's a little after 5 a.m. when she bursts through the hospital doors. Detectives guide her down the long, sterile hallway toward her daughter's room. Nothing can prepare a mother for this. The moment she sees Kayleigh, alive but mauled, stitched, swollen, bruised, she collapses into her arms, sobbing. Kayleigh sobs too, clinging to her mother with trembling hands. "You're going to be okay," Kim whispers over and over, trying to convince both of them it's true. The lockdown has lifted, but Kim still feels unsafe, still feels watched. Her mind races with paranoia. What if he's not working alone? What if someone else comes? What if he returns? She refuses to let go of Kayleigh's hand. Kayleigh later recounts the extent of her injuries. Hearing her voice tremble as she lists them is devastating. 5 stab wounds on her left arm, 2 on her torso, 1 under her left breast, half an inch from her heart, 1 on her rib cage that collapsed her lung, 2 more across her face. She remembers asking the doctor one desperate question. "Am I going to live?" Her voice cracks as she retells it, but even through the trauma, she remembers the relief of feeling her mother's arms around her. After everything she endured that night, fear, darkness, blood, silence, her family's presence brought the first moment of light she had felt in hours. Kim wipes tears away. You just don't understand how someone could do this to your child. While Flynn stays at Tufts guarding Kayleigh, Detective McLaughlin continues his painstaking review of the mountain of CCTV footage gathered from the previous day. And suddenly, there he is, Edwin, captured on video just minutes after Amy Lord's murder. He's at a gas station buying gasoline right before police find Amy's Jeep burning in a ball of flames. It gets worse. He casually walks past an acquaintance at the same station. McLaughlin later finds that acquaintance. Without hesitation, the man confirms it. Yeah, that was Edwin Alemany. The footage keeps rolling. What they see next chills them.
Edwin spends the rest of the day using Amy's stolen money, hopping from store to store. He buys a new phone, lottery tickets, beer, cigarettes, and even takes his friends out to a Chinese restaurant. He signs the phone paperwork under the ridiculous alias Slim Shady. Detectives are stunned at the sheer audacity. Moments after a brutal murder, he's smoking cigarettes outside a restaurant, laughing, playing around, acting like nothing happened. What was striking, McLaughlin says, was that we're over here discovering the horrifying nature of what he did, and he's over there acting a fool in front of a Chinese restaurant. No remorse, no fear, no conscience. Footage following Kayleigh's stabbing paints the same chilling picture. Edwin's still dripping blood, swaggering into a gas station, bragging about getting into a fistfight.
laughing, animated, putting on a show, as if almost killing a woman was nothing more than a bar scuffle. Afterwards, without hesitation or paranoia, he gets into a cab and calmly rides to the hospital, the same hospital where his victim is being treated. By the time McLaughlin finishes piecing together Edwin's entire day on surveillance footage, the timeline is airtight, the pattern unmistakable, the evidence overwhelming. Now only one thing is left: forensics. The science that will prove beyond doubt what Edwin did, where he was, and who he hurt. And once the results come in, the true monster behind these attacks will finally be exposed. DNA specialists were able to identify traces on Edwin Alemany's sneakers, spots that matched Amy. That critical evidence tied him to the murder. At last, investigators could confidently say, this was the man responsible for the attacks that had terrorized South Boston. Every violent step, every abduction, every brutal act, he was behind it all. Back at Tufts Medical Center, Detective Flynn faced a far more delicate task. Kayleigh Ballantyne had survived a horrifying attack. She had fought for her life, stood against a predator, and lived. But now Flynn had to figure out how to tell her the truth, that she had not only survived, but that a serial killer she had unknowingly confronted had already claimed another victim, Amy Lord. We decided not to tell Kayleigh about Amy Lord right away, Flynn recalls. For 3 or 4 days, they withheld the truth, allowing her to recover without crushing her spirit. But eventually, the moment could no longer be delayed. Flynn entered her hospital room, gently asking, "Do you think she's ready?" Kayleigh, still fragile from her ordeal, didn't understand. "Ready for what?" she asked. Flynn told her, Edwin Alemany had murdered Amy Lord. The dam broke. Kayleigh fell apart. A torrent of grief, guilt, and rage overwhelmed her. She had survived, and yet another young woman had not. Pride in her own survival immediately collided with the unbearable weight of loss. "I shouldn't even feel proud," she recalls. "This girl just got murdered by him. I immediately flipped into this place of not feeling worthy, of feeling guilty that I'm still here. Who am I to even feel anything right now? She can't feel anything. She's gone." The following 2 years were a difficult journey of recovery. Kayleigh struggled to rebuild her life. Physical healing was only the beginning. Reliving the trauma during legal proceedings was almost unbearable. But thanks to the meticulous work of McLaughlin and Flynn, justice came swiftly. The jury reached a verdict, and Kayleigh finally had the chance to face her attacker in court. "I started speaking from my heart," she says. "I didn't even read the impact statement I wrote. I just spoke. I had to. I was starting my senior year that summer, and I couldn't walk. I had to learn to walk again. Standing there, speaking my truth, it was so hard. Something no one should ever have to do, but I did, and I won. He didn't win." At the same time, Kayleigh received a personal, lasting connection to Amy Lord. Cindy Lord, Amy's sister, had given her Amy's angel wing necklace. Now Kayleigh carries it everywhere, a tangible reminder of her courage and a symbol of the young woman whose life ended too soon. "Everything I do for the rest of my life, she's going to be with me," Kayleigh says. "She's my guardian angel, and she helped me fight. I'm still here today because she wanted me to be. I speak not only for myself, but for her, too." Life slowly returned to some semblance of normalcy. Kayleigh finished her studies, Alexandra Cruz found stability in her life again, McLaughlin earned a promotion to head detective, and Flynn eventually retired from the force. A strange, unspoken bond united them all: survivors, families, and the officers who refused to let the truth go unpunished. Years later, Flynn received an unexpected call. Kayleigh had made a choice that shocked him. About a year, maybe a year and a half ago, Kayleigh called me. She said she wanted to write to Edwin Alemany. I went dead silent. In my mind, I'm thinking, "Kayleigh, what are you doing? Stay away from that. Nothing good will come of it." Yet despite the shock and fear, Kayleigh's decision was deliberate. Forgiveness, she believed, was the only way to reclaim her power.
I was the first to come to all of them and say I wanted to forgive my attacker, she says. And everyone else had the same reaction. How could you? But I knew in my heart it was the right thing. Forgiveness didn't erase the pain. It didn't erase the memory of the blood, the fear, the brutality. But it allowed Kayleigh to take back control, to refuse to let hatred define the rest of her life. This is the letter I wrote to Edwin Alemny while he was in prison, Kayleigh explains. I believe you get what you deserve for what you did. I will carry the memory of that every day, but knowing I have forgiven you is what allows me to move forward with peace and fulfillment. Forgiving you doesn't mean forgetting. It means I choose not to let your actions control the rest of my life. I choose to live, to be thankful for every moment. I refuse to let hate win. Kayleigh's story is one of survival, courage, and resilience. She stood against a monster, endured unspeakable trauma, and emerged determined not to let evil dictate her life. Amy Lord's memory lives on through her bravery. Alexandra Cruz reclaimed her safety. And the officers who refused to give up, McLaughlin, Flynn, and their colleagues, ensured that justice was served. In the end, the power of forgiveness, the strength of the human spirit, and the unwavering commitment of those sworn to protect reminded everyone that even in the darkest moments, humanity can shine through. As we reflect on the tragic events surrounding Amy Lord and Kayleigh Ballantyne, we are reminded of both the fragility and resilience of life. One woman lost, another fought to survive, and a community forever shaken by the violence of a predator. Thanks to the dedication of law enforcement, the courage of survivors, and the support of their families, justice was served. But the story also leaves us with something more, a reminder of the power of forgiveness, the strength of the human spirit, and the importance of vigilance in our communities. If you found this story compelling, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more real-life crime stories, survival tales, and investigations that uncover the truth behind the headlines. Hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this, and leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Your voice is part of the conversation. Stay safe, stay aware, and thank you for watching.